Myke C-Town, Dead in Hip Hop, celebrating 50 years of hip hop.
This is Rod, aka Modest Media, and this is what I was listening to in 1991.
What up? This is Ken, and we are celebrating 50 years of hip hop.
What up, though? This is your boy Beezy 430 back again with another hip hop 50th celebration. This time we're talking about 1991, right? See, y'all fucking with me. All right.
So this was a very interesting year for me. 15, got a license and was really out in the streets. I mentioned before in other videos that I hung around a lot of people that were older than I was. I'm talking about 3-4 years. And of course I had my older cousins.
All right, so the way I put my list together is in order of importance, because there was a lot of stuff this time.
This was the year of soundtracks for me. Like, this was the beginning of me like tapping into like movie soundtracks that had like a lot of hip hop joints in them. So of course, New Jack City soundtrack, obviously for Ice-T, which is also on my list. Ice-T Original Gangster, Hustler, ya Hustler.
But man, I'm telling you, the most important album, the one that I was listening to the most that year, was Ice-T OG Original Gangster. I don't remember how I got my hands on it. All I remember is I wore that tape out, and it had that Body Count song on there. Then that fucking blew my mind as a young kid.
Like Mike said, like B said, I mean, New Jack City, OG, Original Gangster, Ice-T. Like, same thing with Mike. I wore this tape out. I wore it out. Like, I was a big fan of Ice-T. I had bought Iceberg, like I want to say the year prior. But yeah, this one I really loved.
Tupacalypse Now. Not gonna lie though, this was definitely during a time when singles definitely brought you into the album. So yeah, Brenda's Got a Baby, and If My Homies Call definitely was the reason why I purchased Tupacalypse Now.
Brenda Had a Baby was really, really big. Trap was really, really big. Pac was on his conscious stuff. But the song that got me was Violent. That is one of, if not my favorite song on that album. And this when Tupac was doing that thing with his voice, where he would kind of put this effect on his voice where he would sound deeper and a little bit more muffled. But that song, Violent, you have to listen to it. It has a crazy bass line that I loved, because I probably was driving around this time. So, and the guys that I used, the older guys, of course, they were definitely driving. And they had 12s and speakers in their car, so that they always had stuff that was bumping.
My very first Tupac album came out that year, Tupacalypse Now. My sister used to work at a record radio station, and she had a box of CDs, and I thought the cover was so fucking ugly that I had to listen to it. It's a terrible cover, but I loved it. I didn't know much at all about Tupac, but that is the album that turned me on to him.
As big of a Tupac fan I am, this isn't the Tupac album. I didn't listen to Tupacalypse Now. Like, I heard Brenda's Got a Baby and all that, but it did not make me want to purchase the album. So yeah, I did not listen to this one when it came out. So I got onto that later.
Public Enemy, Apocalypse 91, The Enemy Strikes Black. That's my favorite Public Enemy album. And I still listen to that album regularly.
Oh yeah, the PE album. Oh my God. I told y'all plenty of times, like, yeah, PE was played anytime a PE album came out, we were bumping it like every time, bro. So yeah, this definitely was one of them ones. What was the standout joints on that? Bring the Noise and Can't Trust It. Like those were the ones I was listening to a lot from that album. Yeah, and Shut 'Em Down. Oh, that was the remix on that one? Oh, okay, yeah. That's what I thought when I saw it. I was like, that's not the one that I because I was almost gonna play that in the East and West battle. Like, I like that one.
Quick is the name, is somebody, DJ Quick as a whole, I think isn't really discussed enough. And that album was really, really good, and really had that West Coast thing going. And it was a sound that, that you really didn't kind of hear a lot around that time.
Tonight was so big where I was from in Florida, man. Like, it was on the radio, heard that song, so that made me want to listen to the album. So I heard the whole album, loved that album.
DJ Quick is the name. That was another one, another slept on West Coast producer, MC. Cypress Hill debut album, they self-titled album.
Cypress Hill, the self-titled Cypress Hill album. I had not heard anything like that before. And I remember that might be the first time I heard cops referred to as pigs. I don't know, I'm trying to think. But either way, I love that project.
Cypress Hill, my homies from Chicago, put me onto that. And they were the first ones that played them for me, and that song as well, that just became a staple for them. And and the cover was crazy, but yeah, man, how I could just kill it, man. So yeah, I'll never forget that, being over at that crib and they were playing that. And they put me onto a lot of stuff. The guys up the street had MC Breed. They were from Detroit, so they were playing a lot of that stuff. So Ain't No Future in Your Front, played it a lot. So whenever I was up at that crib, I would hear that joint all the freaking time.
This is another single, even though this was the start of theirs, not even really the start of the Slippers, but it was starting to slip with DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, Home Base. Summertime brought me there. Summertime was literally the reason why I brought that album.
I already know that there's gonna be comments. No, I did not listen to Home Base because Summertime was cool, but there was another single that I can't remember, and it was so whack that I didn't listen to it. I did not listen to the album until way years later, and by that point, I didn't care anymore. So I didn't know, yeah.
Unlike Myke, I did play the Fresh Prince Home Base, and I want to say, what was the popular songs on that? Yeah, you saw my blinker, bitch. It wasn't a great album, but I still was on DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince albums up until this point. Myke is 100% right. I think this was the fall of them, but it did have some joints. I wanted to point them out. Yeah, Ring My Bell. Oh, Summertime was on this. Yeah, Summertime was on it. Yeah, that's right. And you saw my blinker, bitch. Yeah, so Summertime alone made me want to listen to this album. Like, come on, I mean, it's like one of the biggest hip hop songs ever. So yeah, it made me want to listen to this album.
Too Legit to Quit, MC Hammer. One of the biggest, I think still to this day, one of the biggest hip hop videos, like most expensive hip hop videos ever, bruh. Like, it was on some Michael Jackson level, and that was big for hip hop during this time.
MC Hammer's Too Legit to Quit. I was in love with that album. MC Hammer was one of my very first concerts with Kid and Play. And yes, I can't say that I've returned to it, but I don't know. Maybe I will.
Like Hammer, Too Legit to Quit, which was one that definitely got a lot of play as well. And I will mention that one because people nowadays kind of clown Hammer, but I think they really forget how huge Hammer was and the impact that he really had on a lot of folks out here before it became corny and lame and stuff like that.
Heavy D and the Boys, Peaceful Journey. First album after Trouble T. Roy. It had, now that we found love, what are we gonna do? But that was the shit, bruh. Stop sleeping on Heavy D, bruh.
Heavy D, B already mentioned that, I believe. Peaceful Journey. I don't think anybody around me had that one though. Honestly, I remember the singles that got a lot of radio play. But yeah, I don't think anybody around me had that joint.
Third Base, Derelict's a Dialect. That album is. The album is fucking great. People make jokes because like all they had was Pop Goes the Weasel. No, there was a lot of dope shit on that project. Prince Paul production, Sam Sever production. That album was incredible.
This is the album, I thought this was their debut album, but it come out as a sophomore album, Gangstar Step Into the Arena. For some reason, I always thought this was their debut album until I found out they had No More Mr. Nice Guy. Slick Rick, The Ruler's Back. That was another one of my joints I was playing. I was like, oh man. It didn't quite deliver Great Adventures, but it was still a solid sophomore album.
I don't know if anyone's mentioned this yet, but I'm not afraid to say it. Another Brad creation. Coolin' at the Playground. Like, I don't know if anybody listened to that, but Aisha and all that stuff, this is like the whole like crisscross era, I believe too. Like, yo, I was really bumping like Another Bad Creation. It was like some kids. They only had like that really one album that had a lot of big hits on it, but I think they did something after that didn't just quite work. But yeah, I definitely was bumping that. That was heavy.
You know, Rod did mention Another Bad Creation earlier. Yo-Yo, Make Way for the Motherlode. And that one had Don't Play With My Yo-Yo on it. And I want to say, I don't know if I heard this one from my friends in high school or my cousins. Well, my cousins were from the West Coast, so I don't know if they will be playing this. Naughty by Nature, OPP was huge. And I don't think people like don't realize how big Naughty by Nature's OPP was. And it was at the time, You know, it was like OPP, other people's, you know, for the sake of YouTube and not getting this thing said. Property was the radio version. I'll just say that. Property was the radio version. I'll let you guys substitute what the other one was, but it belonged to a female. How about that?
Not About Nature self-titled album with OPP. What you mean? What'd you say? Yeah, shit, man. Tresh was flowing his ass off on there.
I don't know if anybody played the NWA joint after that, Niggas for Life. That was another one I played. Even though they didn't have Ice Cube, I still was bumping Niggas for Life. I thought it was still a dope album, and I still do to this day. So sometime I'll put it on. But obviously it's not straight out of Compton. But yeah, I definitely was bumping Niggas for Life.
He definitely didn't mention this one. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, music for the people. Now say you lying, say you wasn't listening to that shit. Y'all lying. All of you. You weren't born yet. You weren't even a thought. But these motherfuckers, they were listening to it. You crazy. Good Vibrations was on there. Funk You. You remember Funk You? About that time that we start this thing. You want funk? So what the hell do you think I bring? You remember that shit? Ice Cube. So Death Certificate. This was the first Ice Cube album that I actually listened to. And this was the album that turned me on to Ice Cube at the time. Prior to this, I didn't really care.
Ice Cube, Death Certificate, definitely a top 3 favorite album of that year. And like I said, I already mentioned Ice-T, Original Gangster.
And yeah, Ice Cube, Death Certificate, man. Obviously, I mean, we talked about that. Go watch the Patreon classic reviews. I believe we done that one.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. Of course, Ghetto Boys, Can't Be Stopped. I think this one had Mind Playing Tricks on You, right? This one had Mind Playing Tricks on You? Yeah. So yeah, definitely was bumping this album. Honestly, it wasn't a lot that I listened to this year. I don't know. When I was going through it, I was like, this is weird. This is weird because I feel like it was more in like the earlier years that I was bumping. I don't know what happened around 91 where I wasn't, where I didn't have a hold of a lot of music. I'm starting to think maybe my cousin had left around that time. I don't know why I didn't get a hold of much music this year. But yeah, those were the ones I played. I normally have a lot more, but yeah, those are the ones I was bumping in 1991.
This is another album that had me in the chokehold when it came out, because this one or Stakes is High is always considered my 2 favorite De La Soul albums. De La Soul is Dead. Main Source Breaking Albums, of course, Live at the Barbecue, the introduction of Nas, Nasty Nas back then.
Of course, Main Source Breaking Atoms. I love that album. Didn't know anything about Nas, of course, but I was already familiar with KMD. So yeah, I still love that project.
Terminator X and the Valley of the Jeep Beats. And I've mentioned this before. And this was one I got from some homies in school and they had shared this. It was Terminator X and X Clan, and they were big into that. And they had shared that with me, and I got a copy of that. I remember listening to that and jamming that.
Dell, I wish my brother George was here. That came out that year, and I love that album now, but I did not hear that album until well later because I got put on to Dell on No Need for Alarm.
Candyman, Playtime's Over. When we talk about cheesy rappers and trash rappers, very commercial rappers, 91 is a time where hip hop was being commercialized and changing. So you have guys like Candyman and Tone Loc, and you got to remember we also coming off like the Kid and Play sort of thing. So they finally realized that they can make money with music. So you started to see some of those guys. Here's one that nobody mentioned. Second to None. So I was definitely moving out. Like I said, my cousin was from the West Coast, so that West Coast sound, I was definitely listening to a lot of West Coast. But Second to None, I cannot remember how I got my hands on this, but this was like their only album that people would really, really know. And it was released on Profile Records, and it was produced by DJ Quick. So I think that is more than likely how I came across and ended up getting that album.
And then my favorite, of course, this is a no-brainer. Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory. Like, this album changed a lot of shit for me. You gotta understand, like, this is back when like grown folks was just all frowned upon hip hop, not even some. But here go my dad, my pops. I'm playing Low End Theory. This man was coming in my, I had my little boom box and shit, my tape. He was coming in my room talking about something. I got that record. I'm like, you don't got this record. This is Track Called Quest. Dad, what you talking about? He like, no, that record that they sampling, like, I got that record. And like, I just remember every track was coming on. He was like, I got that record. I got that. So when I got finished listening to Low End Theory, I'm like, okay, take me downstairs. Because in the basement, he had a wall fucking full of records. Ken saw it. I showed Ken before. A wall full of records. And he was just playing, like, he'd be like, play that track. I'll play it. He'll play that out. Like, I was like, yo, that was crazy. So, like, this album literally brought me and my dad so much closer at the time. You know what I'm saying? So that's why this album is so near and dear to me. Low End Theory. It's just such a black ass album. I was just like, like I said in the review, I think we reviewed this in the classic. Like, it just made me just proud being a black kid, having a dad that was black as hell, playing all this jazz music, all this soulful music. So yeah, I fucking love it. So yeah, Low End Theory, definitely.
Daddy's Little Girl. I mentioned this one time on a live or somewhere, and everybody looked at me like I was crazy. But Nikki D had a huge song, Daddy's Little Girl. And I don't know how I got my hands a hold of this album, but the rest of it wasn't that good, y'all. That was the only one that she had. She was truly a one-hit wonder.
And last, Freestyle Fellowship, To Whom It May Concern. That's another album that came out that year that I did not listen to until after. So I'm just saving y'all the fucking keyboard taps, okay? I knew those albums existed, didn't listen to them at the time. But yes, that's what I was listening to in 1991.
Bitch Better Have My Money by AMG. AMG. And I don't know why. I recently put this on a while ago, and I don't understand why I played this as much as I did. And I think because the guys up the street, I may have looked up to them and they thought it was dope. So I just kind of assimilated and thought it was dope as well. But there were only a handful of tracks when I went back and listened to it that I liked off of it. So yeah, there were some other joints on here that I heard, I'm sure, but those are the ones that I remember the most. Others I may have just listened to in passing, and of course listened to more and more as the years went on, as they kind of came across my radar. But yeah, that's it. That's what I was listening to in 1995.